So we've talked about our running config and startup config as the files that we use for maintenance. Well, what if I want to save them someplace else? What if I want to have my configuration files? Is that possible? Sure it is.
Rolling.
All right, let's jump into router R1. Here's R1. My console password was console. My enable password was Cisco. And when I do a show run, it shows me my actual configuration file with my passwords, my interface. All the way back. Notice our DHCP stuff is missing. It's because I've rebooted the router in the meantime from our DHCP configuration we had previously. So there are some things missing in here. It's because I never saved it. Well, that would be dumb. I should have a copy of this saved someplace. I should have done a copy run start to save it to NVRAM, but I didn't. So maybe what I want to do is save this out to a server someplace. So again, what we can do is actually, instead of copying run to startup config, we can copy it out to a TFTP server. We can do it to FTP. We can do a secure copy if we want to. So if I had a TFTP server, I can do copy running config TFTP. And that actually lets me specify the IP address of a host. So 192.168.30.200. What's the destination file name? We'll call it r1-config, and writing out the running config. This is actually going to fail for me in this example. We haven't got any routing set up yet, so there's no way for my router to know where that particular server is. So we can't get there from this server. However, if I wanted to show you it actually worked, I could go to R2. That server, 30.200, is directly off of R2. So we could do the same exact thing. Let me get this where you can see it. For R2, and say enable. Password must be console. No, it would be Cisco, it would be Tractor. What's the password? Oh, Cisco, what's the password? Oh boy, enable. Password. Oh boy, I don't know what the password is. Now we're screwed. Nah, you know what we'll do? We'll do a password recovery. That's what we'll do. So let's talk about what would happen. What if you don't know the password? How do you get into this thing? How do you save this in the short term? Well, Cisco has actually given us the functionality to break into a booting up system, into a debug mode where we can actually change what's called the configuration register to a value that lets us bypass the startup. And the startup configuration is where all my passwords are. So if I turn my router off and turn it back on, and within the first 30 seconds I hit control break, it actually jumps me out of my normal boot sequence and puts me into this debug mode. It's called ROMMON. From ROMMON, I can actually go in, and if I want to use the question mark to see the help functionality, I can change my configuration register. How would I do that? Well, I would use the confreg command, confreg. Now, I guess the trick here is knowing what the parameter we want to set it to. So 0x just means hex in Cisco, and I want to set it to 2142. You remember that probably in a previous discussion we talked about what the standard setting was. It's 2102. It's a bitwise parameter, this configuration register. And by changing one bit, I can go from a 0 to a 4, and that changes the configuration register to 2142. That one individual 4 right there tells the router to bypass the startup config. Do not read the passwords. So I'll go to confreg 2142, and I'll do a reset. How do I know? The command is right here that says reset. You probably want to go in here and look with your help command every time, because I've seen other routers where it's not reset, it's reload or reboot. So you know, it's specific to the ROMs that are in here. And this particular router is reset, so that's perfect. We'll go through our whole normal boot process. Remember, this router is named R2. Waiting for it, waiting for it. Yes, wait, why is it asking me to enter the initial configuration dialog box? That would typically mean that I don't have a configuration. I don't. I bypassed NVRAM. I didn't read the startup. So as far as the router is concerned, there is no configuration. So I say no. And look, I'm sitting at my router prompt, my greater than prompt, my user executive. Well, we had that before. What I couldn't do before is I couldn't do enable because there was a password. There's no password. Now that there's no password, I'm by that spot. Show run. Can I see what the password is? Nope, there is nothing in run because we don't have a running config. How about show start? We didn't erase it. We just bypassed it. So show start, the password was Tractor. I must have fat fingered it somehow. That was the enable password, it was Tractor. If I wanted to reset it at this point, I can reset it. Whoops. Bring up packet tracer there. I don't know what just happened there. I hit something. If I go back into my router and I want to reset my password, I can do it, right? Well, you know what I could actually do first? I can do a copy start run. That takes the configuration from the startup configuration, copies it into run. Look at my prompt. I'm back to R2. My router's actually running again right now. My interfaces will still be shut down. See, they're red because there was nothing in the configuration that told it to start back up. So quickly I would have to run into interface FA00, say no shut, and then interface FA01, no shut, and interface serial 00, no shut. And now I should have all little green links on my machine, and I sure do. Everything looks good now. Now my runner is actually up and running again, but notice I still don't have the password. I haven't changed my password, but I'm still at privilege exec. I can go in here and say enable password Cisco, which is what I thought it was. Enable password Cisco, EXIT, save the changes, copy, run start, and now I'm good to go. If I do a show start, I have my password Cisco. The next time my router boots, I'm good to go. We did this so that we could get into the gosh darn router so we could actually do a TFTP of this configuration so I could save it for next time. How do I do that? You remember what we were doing before? Copy, run TFTP, IP address of the remote host, 192.168.30.200. What do we want to name it? R2 config? Yeah, that'll work. Writing running config. Okay, perfect. So now I have a backup of that configuration. I have a backup of that running config. Where is it? How do I find it? How do I get it back? It's actually sitting on my server. If I open up my server here, let me bring this back so you can see it. Put this server in here. If I go to the services, this server in Packet Tracer is a TFTP server. There's the R2 configuration file right there. That means if something happens down the road and I want it back, I can just go to my TFTP server and bring that file back and restore my application to where it was, my router to where it was. How hard is that to do? Well, it's pretty difficult. So let me walk you through this. Copy TFTP run. It's the exact same command, but I've changed my source and destination. It's not hard at all. Okay, see, what's the address of the TFTP server? It's 192.168.30.200. What's the name of the file? I believe it was R2-config. What do we want to call it? Running config. I must have it wrong. Maybe there's no I in config. That's probably the case. So copy run TFTP, copy TFTP run. The host 192.168.30.200. If this doesn't work, I will go and actually look at it. CONFG. Geez, that doesn't look right. So let's actually go and see what the name of the file is. So I should have good documentation, but I don't. So the name of the file is R2-CONFG. CONFG, that's what I thought I typed. I typed R1. Copy TFTP run, 192.168.30.200, R2 CONFG. And it's configured back. We're done. Copied in, everything is good. We recovered our machine from a failure. Pretty simple, pretty easy. You can actually just copy the text and copy it into a notepad file if you want to. You can do a show run and copy it that way. Lots of different ways that we can do it. Again, really easy way to back up your configurations.